Welcome back to CryptosRus. I'm George. We're all George. The US, or at least the Fed, just injected about $30 billion in liquidity into the markets. So this is something that the Fed does, right? So they have a couple tools in their tool shed. One is just to manipulate rates. Another is to buy up junk bonds, whenever they need to save. And that's what basically injecting money is. So sometimes they need to do that when corporations are failing or banks are failing or whatever. They need to just bail out someone. So this goes obviously towards the debt, the deficit, even though the Fed has their own, but ultimately it comes from the overall deficit. And, it's never ending. Okay. It's never ending. This is the reason why people are starting to distrust more and more so of the dollar and of fiat in general, because central banks, not just the Fed alone, will always do this. And eventually it all topples. And that's why you need to hold on store of values like real estate, like gold, like Bitcoin. And the best is the last one I mentioned, in case you couldn't figure that out. All right. Moving on to Bitcoin related stuff. You still have BlackRock, okay, the largest asset manager on the planet, telling CNBC and its audience that Bitcoin is a global, scarce, emerging monetary instrument. It's a diversifier and hedge. Again, based on what I just said, people that want to hedge against central banks or Fed, or hedge against their dollar or whatever fiat, you need to buy a store of value. Okay? And nothing has outperformed Bitcoin over the last however many years now. 15, 16 years. There will be times where it could get rocky, could go down, but when in doubt, zoom out, you look at the overall picture. Nothing has outperformed Bitcoin in the last 15 years, 10 years, 5 years. Nothing is close. Another big bank CEO, Standard Chartered, expects blockchain to eventually power all global transactions, and Standard Chartered themselves are big believers of Bitcoin and everything related to Bitcoin, like custody and trading and all that stuff, all the services. Even a CEO once upon a time said 30% of his net assets is in Bitcoin. So obviously there are a lot of people that believe, and these big, smart, big whale, big money, smart investors do not care about day-to-day or week-to-week volatility. They know the future, they understand, and they're not going to shy away from Bitcoin. They're not. And neither should you. I'm seeing a lot of bearish sentiment out there, and I know it's quite frustrating when on a Sunday, everything seems to be doing well, and then boom, you get that nasty drop out of nowhere. Yeah, that's frustrating. But we have seen it before, time and time again, and we always recover from that. U.S. Texas State Teachers Retirement Fund just reported they hold about 20 million of strategy shares. So that's their way of investing in Bitcoin. And Strategy themselves, of course, keeps on investing. And they just bought another 397 Bitcoin for about $46 million. Sailor will continue to load up, and that will never stop. All right. What else is there? Well, if you look at the ETFs, some bad, some good. Bitcoin on Friday had a 192 million outflow. Okay, that makes 3 straight days. Obviously, Wall Street is a little scared right now. They're kind of like retail sometimes. When it gets scary, everyone just follows the herd and like, okay, everyone's selling, let's sell. Right? So that happened the last 3 days of last week. And then Ethereum also 98.2 million outflow. So that wasn't good. However, the newest kid out of block, Solana, added 44.5 million, which actually was a bump up from Thursday. So it does seem like there is still demand there, right? Solana ETF is like the newest kid on the block, the shiniest toy right now. So some may be flocking to it. But yeah, sometimes Wall Street gets a little panicky too. But that's okay because they like to FOMO just like retail investors. When things get good, guess what? The inflows are massive. They seem to turn around very, very big. But the biggest problem right now in this cycle, and I think a lot of you guys noticed this, is the lack of retail investors. We have some, obviously you guys and me, and there are still some retail investors in the space. But you could see how retail has not been leading anything, okay, this cycle. In fact, since the last cycle, retail has been going lower and lower and lower, lower, lower. And this is part of the problem of why alts are still struggling while Bitcoin is not. Because retail is either too scared to enter or have found greener pasture somewhere else like stocks, or they've been all liquidated. There's too much going on. Seems like too many people getting liquidated left and right. So that's the biggest problem right now. It's like we don't have enough retail that actually believe and are holding NDCA. However, is it all bad news? No. Yeah, like I said, we may have days or weeks where Bitcoin is down. But does that mean things are over? No. Just a month ago, less than a month ago, a few weeks ago, Bitcoin hit a new high at 126. We're not talking about 6 months ago. We're talking about the first 2 weeks of October, we made a new high. So have we really gone anywhere? Well, if you look at our current level now, we're about the same. We have seen this before. We could certainly turn upwards. Not all is lost. We're not back down below 100K. We're not back down further than that. We're back down to where we were, like mid-October. We fell down to these levels mid to end of October. So nothing worse has happened. We also have a futures gap right around 109, 109.9 and 109.7. Right? We know that we hate it when CME gaps are filled on the downward, trend, but sometimes CME gaps pulls things to the upside, right? So we have that because that's actually where we ended on Friday. But overall, had the metrics or the fundamentals changed? The answer is no. The answer is no. Okay. We're still, if you're looking at, when in doubt, zoom out. When you're looking at how we're moving this cycle versus previous cycles, we're definitely still up over 100% over last year. however many percent since the bottom of 2023, we're still trending higher. And we haven't hit our peak. Every single metric that we have that measures peaks for Bitcoin has not triggered. And we have like over 100 of them, right? So we have formed a golden cross recently. And we're still waiting for that top. So do not become discouraged and get out, because this is the time where you actually want to get in. If you missed out on an entire year's worth of gains, this is actually a time when you want to come in, like right at the end. So is that next explosive move right around the corner? I think so. I think we've been suppressed for way too long. Retail has been scared for way too long. But we will turn around, and that's when FOMO hits all across the board. I guess we'll see. And obviously the macro environment and geopolitical environment is also getting better too. Those things help. Liquidity is still skyrocketing as well. Rate cuts, that's going to help as well with liquidity. There are a lot of factors at play that are very good for a run. And we're waiting for that. And I know it's going to happen. We just have to be patient.